All members are here. Member Barnett is here at the Government Center in person with substantial social distancing here. So first item we have on the agenda is approval of the minutes from May 19th, June 3rd, and June 8th. And I would entertain a motion. Member Beard, second. Can't see anyone. Member Metzger, very good. Any questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. No members of the public today, I believe. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And so under our agenda, the first item is 4A1A. The county clerk, Ms. Michael, the item is request approval of a list of election judges, and I would entertain a motion to that effect. Member Erickson, second. Member Beard. All right, very good. Ms. Michael is here. Would you like to go ahead and I guess come to the podium?
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello. Any questions?
Yeah. Does anyone have any questions, or you want to anything you want to talk about as far as that particular item?
Well, the process hopefully was pretty well explained, and we go through it every 2 years and got the proper documents from each party chair. We send out that information to all the precinct committeemen to go and recruit judges. They send all the information back to the party chairs. Party chairs sign off on it, comes back to us. Now we wait for your approval and the approval of the county board, and then it goes to the circuit court. So they are actually all sworn in by the circuit court.
All right. Any questions? Member Wolrab?
I just want to thank everybody who has stepped up to do that work, because especially right now it's a challenge. But thank you, everybody.
All right. Anybody else? Mr. Barnett, anything? All right. Okay, ready to vote then. All those in favor, raise your hand or say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Other than that, we have your reports. Do you want to talk about the report you sent, or does anybody have any questions on that?
It was rather lengthy, as you could see, 9 pages.
I think
Probably could have done about 9 more, but I wanted to give you a real overview of what we're looking at with these new mandates.
everybody appreciates the information. It's always nice to have it in a document you can refer back to it. So did anybody have any questions? Member Beard, is that yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I did have one question I would like to hear from Ms. Michael. Within, most elections we're used to now, especially when they run well, getting the results, that night. And, in this new environment, and I'm looking at like the Kentucky primary as an example, where we're going to be potentially in an environment where a significant number of votes, whether it's 5% or 10%, end up being mail-in and end up being received or processed, in the 14 days, in our case, after. One of the things following with what happened in Kentucky, it's about expectation setting. I know they're the Secretary of State, and they really talked about, hey, for them, I think it was the 30th, we'll have the results by the 30th. So I guess, what are your thinking as, in reality, we may not have results, especially on some of these local races where the margin may be in the dozens or the hundreds of votes, in terms of working with whether it's the local media or whoever to say that we may be in an environment that we just do not have results that night, and we need to anticipate it being 4 or 5, however many days, that we are comfortable enough that there are enough votes in that the results can be talked about.
Well, we've been researching our teams that we had in place, all of those things that you referenced. We have built up a relationship with the media over the years, and we will be getting this word out early and often. You can expect late results. Anything else will be a bonus because of all the unknowns that are out there. And you're right with, as I explained in that report, we don't know whether to expect 2,000, we're sending out to thousands and thousands of voters, are we going to get 2,000 back or 30,000? And then, of course, the ballots start coming back in. Are we going to get 30,000 ballots? Well, I'm not going to go into the concerns, but let's just say we rely on our mail service that goes through Champaign County and then has to come back here. And often we get mail that is late in delivery. It's sometimes frustrating. I know they're doing the best they can, but imagine what they are faced with. That's why we had the teleconference call with them. I still had quite a few questions about the delivery of the ballots in a timely manner. And so we're going to meet with the manager through a teleconferencing call to see what other information they can provide. But I would expect it's just going to be a monumental task, and for everyone to be prepared that the results will be delayed. And again, anything else would be a wonderful bonus.
Any other questions? Member Robustelli?
Yeah, I just wanted to extend a thanks from a constituent who had contacted your office about a marriage certificate during the last few weeks, and I don't know who it was, but I suggested they give you a call, and they were able to get the certificate nonetheless, even though I know that that wasn't something that you were doing. And so I just wanted to say thank you for doing that, because that certainly meant a great deal to them. And they responded back to me with gratitude, and I said I would thank you and your office for doing that. I also wanted to just make a comment. I appreciate the report you provided, and I appreciated you including the estimate from Peoria County and the information about the funding that will be available to help offset some of the costs associated with vote by mail. Since Peoria County has nearly double the amount of registered voters than we do in the jurisdiction you cover, I mean, I just based that on both the most recent election that you both posted. They have about 120,000 voters, registered voters. I would assume, based on what would drive costs, would be the number of these applications going out and the volume of processing them. So do you see that the COVID funding for this will cover much of the costs?
I think it's difficult to say at this time. Depends on how Peoria County, who has more registered voters than we do, how they're going to process that, how much it's how everybody's going to prepare for it. And they're very organized as well, but we're going to be hiring a lot of extra part-time people in anticipation of handling 30,000 ballots possibly. So, and we haven't determined what that cost will be. We've also, it's been rumored and not verified yet, and we'll certainly let you know as soon as we hear. It's rumored that perhaps we will get even more funding through either the state or the feds. I'm strict guesstimate, we're at 200,000. But again, it's purely a guesstimate. We'll know more too when the applications, once they're mailed and they start coming back. We're gonna see, boy, we are getting way more than we ever thought, or gee, it's a lot slower and not as many as we thought. And of course, that would possibly reduce the costs of things too. But I think we should semi-plan on $200,000, and we'll try to keep under that. We're gonna manage the invoices, daily on our spreadsheets to see where we're at. But for me and for the voters and for McLean County, we've got to get this process done. And I don't want to say at any cost, but I think you know what I mean. We're not going to cut things because we're afraid that it might slow the process and disenfranchise some voters, and we don't want that. We do have a reputation for not overspending, hopefully, over all these years, and we're going to maintain that. We're just not going to go willy-nilly and spend recklessly. But we're going to do whatever we can to make sure that we don't have piles of ballots sitting not counted and not processed properly. That's really our main goal.
Any other questions? I have one. The way it's going to work, your office is going to send out an application for a mail-out ballot. That application will come back to your office. is there a certain date that you will be able to start actually sending out the ballots?
September 24th is the first day that we can send out ballots.
Okay.
And that's also the first day of early voting.
And then up to how close to the election can you send them out?
5 days.
Okay. All right.
And that's where my nervousness gets in with sending out a ballot. 5 days goes through the Champaign system. Will it get back in time and marked in time? And that's why we're going to continue to meet with the post office folks to see how we can help in any way that we can. Little worried about those late ballots and the number of them. So time will tell as we start receiving those applications back.
And then do you expect for people that have ballots that have been mailed to them to fill them out and actually bring them either to a polling place or into the government center? And how are you going to deal with that?
Well, they can't bring them to the polling place, and we're going to put that word out early and often. There is concerns about just different articles, we've all read them, that make the headlines of people bringing them into our office, which they can do. But they have to sign, they can do that, that's fine. If they have someone, let's say your aunt is ill and you bring in her ballot, you have to have a signed affidavit from your aunt for us to process that. So we're going to work with the media to get that word out. I believe, I haven't verified this, but I believe a person can only bring in 2 ballots. So if someone comes in with 10 or 20 ballots, we're going to look and make sure that we know the procedure for that. They either have to have an affidavit for each and every one of them, or we can only accept 2. We will strictly adhere to those rules.
And again, I think it's important getting that word out, because I think people will assume that, well, I filled it out, why don't I just take it to my polling place or whatever. And again, I can see the confusion that would cause.
Yes, and again, as you all know too, it's getting the word out. People will say, well, why don't you get the word out? Well, we will certainly try. What person reads the newspaper might not listen to the radio. Some people might have shut off their radios and their TVs, but we'll just continue to get the word out as best we can, and any help that you all can provide to spread that word will be very much appreciated.
So how about if I request a mail-out ballot, and then the day of an election, I decided, or before that, I decided, you know what, I'm just going to go vote in my polling place. Will the election judges have some record that they've had a ballot mailed to them?
Yes. Back in the day, you had to bring your ballot with you and turn that into the judges. You don't have to do that any longer. You're going to commit a felony if you vote twice, but the checks are in place now with technology that we pull you up on the computer, and it shows that you have requested a vote by mail ballot. The judges will say and trust you to destroy that ballot that you have at home, and then you're allowed to vote, but provisionally, so that we double check when it goes back to the office.
Okay. All right. Again, it looks like to me like you have the procedure worked out, or at least you're working on it. So November's gonna be here before you know it.
What's been really pleasant, we put out a shout out to many of our veteran election judges, asking them if they wanted to work on these shifts that may go 24 hours. We just have no idea. We're going to start out 3-hour shifts. We have a whole system in place, and we've already filled up all those spots with supervisors, with our key veteran judges, Republican and Democrat. We're going to pick up the mail ourselves. We've arranged for a special post office box where we will send a Republican and a Democrat judge every morning to pick up the ballots when they start coming in, so that they are well supervised. Where we lose track of the supervision is when the ballots go through Champaign County. And again, I don't mean to disparage Champaign County at all, but that makes me a little bit nervous. And we would like to fine tune that process and get more answers from Champaign on how they safeguard those ballots when they're sitting there overnight before they come to us.
Okay. All right. Anyone have any more questions? Member Metzger?
Clerk Michael, would you please provide me a little bit of insight on this vote center? Can you share a little bit more information? It's on election day. It's going to be one place that anybody in the county can come and vote. But it doesn't appear that you're going to be able to be with the Bloomington Election Commission, or where's that at?
That's with the lawyers right now. The new mandate from that new bill said to have, mandates us to have a vote center. And you're right, that's for, it's kind of like early voting, where anybody can come to the government center, you're a registered voter or a same-day voter, and vote. And then in the years past, you can come to the government center because we're on the first floor and BEC is on the 4th floor. So that has caused no confusion other than just telling the folks to go up to the 4th floor. This statute specifically says each jurisdiction must have a vote center. We had already been in talks with BEC to be combined to go to BCPA or the arena. I prefer them all. We're still talking about that. So we'll all be in one location so that the voters don't get confused. But now with this jurisdiction thing, imagine the confusion if we each have to have our own vote centers. And that word gets out, a Bloomington voter might hear it's at the mall. They drive out to the mall. I'm sorry, we can't handle you. You've got to go down to the BCPA. We think this is really disenfranchising voters. So we're trying to see with our SBE told us the final answer will come from our state's attorney's office. So we're waiting for a final interpretation of that. We hope that we can combine. It seems foolish to be forced to have 2 separate vote centers.
You're muted. You're muted.
I'm sorry. I have a couple of other comments, but unrelated to the election. So I'll let anyone else ask any questions. And then I want to make a couple of comments about some of the other things in the report.
Okay. Anyone else have anything for Ms. Michael on the election? Okay, I guess not. Go ahead. Member Metzger, you can go ahead.
I just wanted to make 2 comments. One of them is I had some interaction with your recorder of deeds area, especially Mark Bounds, I believe was his name. And not only did he provide me with the information that I needed very promptly, very efficiently, but the next day he followed up and he had found additional information, and he sent it to me via email and said, I'm sorry, I missed this, and here's some additional information for you. So they don't get much press on how well they're doing, and I noticed in the report how they are processing a lot right now, and so I just wanted to acknowledge my personal interaction with him. The other individual that I have had significant interaction with is Tish. And she is responsible, or at least I deal with her on she does, I think, tax extension division, but she takes all of our levy and budgets for townships and multi-township assessment districts. And I usually take them in, she stamps them, I have copies. Now we're not coming in. And so I talked to her and we made arrangements through the HUD, and it was flawless. And I was quite concerned about it, but I just want you to know that she and her team went out of their way to make sure that my township and my assessment district were able to be assured that our documents were in, and we actually got copies back. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Our staff is just absolutely fantastic. And they, as the rest of the county, I think has adjusted very well to this challenge. And I think I mentioned in the report that one day, Maria kept running back and forth to deliver the marriage licenses, because we have to meet those people in person and see their IDs. And we're changing that, by the way. We think we're going to be able to do that online through video once we get the legal sign off on that. And she did 14 marriage licenses in one day. And they've just really excelled. So thank you.
Very good. Anything else for the county clerk? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Next item for B1, Marshall Thompson, Director Animal Control. She doesn't have anything on the agenda other than her report. She is not here, but I'm sure we could probably try and get some questions answered if you have any. Any questions for animal control? All right, seeing none, the next item then is Michelle Anderson, County Auditor. Same with her, we just have a general report from her. She's not here. Is there any questions for our auditor? All right, next up then is our County Treasurer, Becky McNeil. And she has two items on the agenda. The first one is D1A, request approval of a resolution authorizing the county board chairman to execute a deed of conveyance for two parcels, 17-03-281-002 and 17-03-281-003. I would entertain a motion to approve that. Member Metzger, second member Wolrab. Okay, I'm gonna let Ms. McNeil talk about that a little bit and then we'll vote. Go ahead.
Okay, so this is really an example of why the program is so good. This parcel, these two parcels, they started out having tax sales back in tax year 2006. So it's taken this long for the parcel to go through tax sale process and deed. And then when we acquired deed, it still took an extended period of time for someone to show an interest in the properties. So here we are in 2020, and now this parcel will be returned to the tax rolls in 2021. So.
All right, anybody have any questions on that? Ready to vote? All those in favor say aye or raise your hand. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item then is accept and place on file the county treasurer's monthly financial reports. I would entertain a motion to do that. Member Wolrab, second. Member Erickson. Okay, I believe they've been emailed to you. I let Ms. McNeil go ahead and go over those for us then.
Thank you. So during the month of June, we started to see the impact in sales tax of COVID-19. And that very first line there, you can see that last year we received revenue of $475,098. And during June of 2020, which would have been for those March sales, we came in at $347,743. So that was down by 26%. Our countywide stayed almost the same, up a little bit. Local use up a little bit. Cannabis local use, obviously that's a new one this year. Income tax last month was significantly lower than it was in May of 2019. But a big part of that was the fact that the governor had extended the income tax filing date. So those May receipts would have reflected the April tax revenue going into the state of Illinois. So we didn't have as much of a reduction there during the month of June. And one thing I hope that we will see over the next couple months, because that filing date was extended until July, hopefully we will see some of what we lost during the month of May. We will see some of that recovered as we start seeing that income tax come in during the month of July and August and September. Okay, so our revenue for the month of June, $576,758 compared to $691,066, $114,308 lower than about 1 year ago. The year-to-date comparison, last year we were at $5,329,000. Right now we're at $5,059,000. So we are about $270,000 lower than where we were this time in 2019. Part of the reason why it's only 270 is because we started out really good here in 2020. And if you can remember last month, that income tax loss was almost, I think it was around $380,000. And then here this month, we've got the $114,000. So between the two, it's almost about $500,000. But again, because we started out in a very good position, we haven't seen the full result of the situation. The budget comparison, Year-to-date actual, again, 5,059,401. That is about, oh, I did not include my percentage there. I'm so sorry. It's almost about 50% of budget. You'd see we would like to be at 5,122,000. So we are under by 63,287 or 1.2%. Okay.
Any questions on that? Okay, go ahead.
Okay. The next column is the shared sales tax revenue. And again, there for the month of June, those March receipts, you can see that the town of Normal and the city of Bloomington, both of them also brought in negative revenue. Our receipts a total 255,897 compared to 317,119 a year ago. So down about 19% for the month of June. Overall, we are down 32,946, and the fund has a balance of 11,315,310. Any questions on that? Moving on, the motor fuel tax, and earlier this year I started including this on the report because we are, this is the first full year where we're receiving the renewal fund distribution. So, and I know that the highway department obviously is planning several projects for the county as well as the townships. 817,426 for the county, 583,489. Those are the distributions coming in from the increase in the gas tax and the portion that's being distributed to the counties. Our regular CMFT is 1.2 million, and TMFT was 895,000. The property tax revenue. So during the month of June, we were able to release 2 distributions. So the county's total revenue at the end of June was 15,409,570. And that was about 42.3% of our overall levy. And typically at the end of June, we are well beyond the first installment. We have all of our tax distributions in from the first installment. So you can see that we are about 10% at the end of June, we're about 10% behind. And that is obviously directly related to the extension of the due date as well as pushing that interest penalty back a month. We still have right now, I wrote these figures down because I knew you'd probably be curious. I looked at 2 weeks out from the due date and compared it to where we were 2 weeks out from the due date last year. And this year, our paid property taxes over both installments, we look at the whole entire collectible of 349 million, and we have 50.9% in right now. A year ago, 2 weeks after the due date, we had 53.9% in. So we still have 3% to collect to get us up. I do know that there are taxpayers that are using this extension and taking advantage of that time period there to take care of other things before they take care of their property taxes because of the effect of COVID-19. Everybody's trying to balance everything out. So over the next 2 weeks, I suspect we'll pull in probably close to 5 million, this 3% that we are down by. So any questions there with that? Okay. And then the last number on that page is the Community Development Assistance Program. You all have talked about this and taking these funds and trying to utilize them out in the community at this time. Since we were at the 6-month mark, I just wanted to give you a balance in that fund. Fund balance is about 1.1 million right now.
All right.
Okay. moving on to the investment reports, with this being the first day of July, obviously we weren't able to go out and pull interest rates or interest revenue right now. We can't just go out and pull any of that right now. So these are actually last month's rates. But you can see, obviously, during the month of June, through the property tax receipts, we pulled in a total of the 43% there. 65,604,133 is the total investment balance. And because I'm going to move on, because this is the 1st of July, we were not able to pull our Blue Cross Blue Shield report. Again, it's just they're not ready yet for those numbers to be put out there to us. So next month, I'll present the information for June as well as the information for July, okay? So, and then the final report is the nursing home. The nursing home through the month of May. In May, they reported $563,000 in revenue. Their total revenue year to date, and this is, again, I'm sorry, this is just through May for the nursing home because that's as far as they've reported to us, $2,943,000. Expenses, $3,270,000. So right now, expenses are exceeding revenue by about $327,000. When we look at the AR balance, their AR balance is actually down. We started out the year at 3.3 million. They're at 2.9 million right now. The cash, when we look at the cash, the nursing home started out 2020 with 1,056,000 in cash. Right now they're at 1,491,000 in cash. So their cash position has improved by 434,000. Fund balance, the nursing home started out with a fund balance of 3.8 million. Through the end of May, we are at 3.5 million. Again, that's that $327,080 where expenses have exceeded revenue.
Member Metzger, you have a question?
We have this question all the time. I'm on the health committee, and the report that I see from the financials on the health committee, they do not match. Is there some way that we can have a collaboration between your area and them to see why we don't have revenues and expenditures identical? It's strange to me that we're one organization and we have different numbers.
Okay, I was not aware of that. I know that my information is coming directly off of the general ledger. And my information is based off of the accrual that the nursing home sends down to us. I can ask administration to share a copy of their report with me. Today, I sent the nursing home administrator a copy of this report. So I'm not aware of what you are referring to. Certainly, I'm now curious. And so we can get a hold of that report and take a look at it.
I would appreciate that because Monday we're meeting and I usually have this report with me. And when I see and I don't raise the issue at that meeting because I don't necessarily, the people who are representing are probably not the people who put the numbers together. So it would be a little uncomfortable. So I'm asking you since you shared that, if you can do a follow-up or if administration, somebody can do a follow-up to make sure that we look at these together and find out why they're not matching.
Sure, we can do that. I will ask the administrator's office, and actually they're here right now, but we'll definitely get together with them and find out what it is that the nursing home is reporting. I am looking at an overall picture of all revenue and all expenses. So I don't know what their report looks like, and I don't know what month they're coming into you with, if they're coming in with information for the month of June. As of right now, I don't have that. all I have is through the month of May. So we'll definitely look at it, okay? Thank you.
All right, very good. Any other questions for the treasurer? Not, then we're ready to vote. All those in favor of accepting these reports, raise your hand. Opposed? Motion carries. Very good. All right, Ms. McLean, you have anything else?
I don't think so.
All right, anybody have anything else for the treasurer? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, next item we have on our agenda is E1A. It's our county administrator. She has one item for action. Request approval of a second amendment to the settlement agreement with State Farm. I would entertain a motion for that. Anyone? Member Wolrab, second? Second. Member Barnett seconded that. Okay. Ms. Rodriguez, would you like to lead us in on this?
I can do a small amount of leading. Ms. Jessica Woods is also in the virtual room, as well as is Mr. John Pratt. And if there are any questions, Mr. Pratt is not present to give any formal presentation, but to simply answer any questions. So the memo contained therein was authored by Ms. Woods, so I would offer to the membership that she can answer any questions that you might have.
Okay. Member Wolrab.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was wondering if we could get sort of a plain language explanation of number 10, which starts on page 32, item 10, just so we are all understanding exactly what I think that's essentially what's going on. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Woods.
I will defer to John if he's okay with that. He is the attorney for District 87 for taxing issues at least. He was involved with the creation of the original State Farm agreement and then with the First Amendment and has been instrumental in securing the Second Amendment. So he's clearly the expert on this, and I don't want to, since we have him here, I will let him answer any of the questions that he's able to. Would you mind answering that question, John?
I'd be happy to. So just a very brief history of this agreement. 10 years ago, probably over about a 6 or 9 month period, all the taxing bodies got together in several meetings and came up with this format of an agreement to settle some assessment complaints that were pending before the Board of Review involving State Farm. And State Farm, of course, has been exceedingly cooperative in reaching this agreement. So there, as you folks are very well aware, there are two components to the property tax system. There's the assessment, the assessed value, and this agreement locks in the assessed value for State Farm properties. They're locked in at what the assessor had them on for, so these aren't made up or negotiated values. These were values that the assessor came up with. The second part of the property tax is the spreading of the levy over the assessed value. And so in order to accomplish the objectives of this agreement, we set the assessed value and we also limited each taxing body's ability to grow essentially the taxes that State Farm pays are only allowed to grow 1% per year. And that's what that abatement provision is all about. So assessed amount, the assessed value is locked in, and then the taxes that State Farm actually pays can grow by 1% per year.
Does that answer your question, Member Wolrab? All right. Any other questions? Member Metzger?
I just want you to know that I'm going to abstain. I will not vote on this.
Okay. Member Beard, did you send a memo the same way? Okay. All right. Are we ready to vote then? All those in favor, raise your hand or say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Pratt, for joining us.
Thank you.
All
Thanks.
right. Next item then, I believe, is still with the administrator, and it's according to our agenda, the first one is Economic Development Council update. You want to do that?
I certainly can. To you, Chairman Soldner, and the membership, I received an update from EDC Executive Director Patrick Hoban, as per your request regarding your micro bridge loan and recovery loan programs. So as of today, there have been no new applications. Mr. Hoban believes that this is due to replenishment of the Paycheck Protection Program funding and the introduction of 2 new grants from the state of Illinois. So, you know, certainly your programs were presented as programs of last resort. And so as long as there are other opportunities out there, it's the estimation of the EDC that applications to our 2 programs will be minimal at this time. So in addition, Mr. Hoban wanted you to know that at his last update, he let you know that there was 1 loan package that was received. There was still some updated information since the last time Mr. Hoban visited us and to today. And they are still working with that applicant to complete and take it to the Community Development Corporation Board for approval. So Mr. Hoban and his staff are still working with that individual, and that looks like it's moving right along, but it wasn't as far along as thought at our last update. On the marketing side, which was also a request of this committee, the EDC and the Chamber have a marketing campaign for the recovery loans, for the reopening guide, and for being prepared. And their ads run online, and there's a print edition in the Pantograph as well as social media and audio formats. So that is also moving forward. I don't have data and statistics to report relative to the touches to those various norms, but if that's something that the membership should want, I can see if Mr. Hoban is keeping track of that. I know that in some other entities keep track of their touches upon so they can see if it's efficacious. But that is what Mr. Hoban shared with me relative to the updates on those loan programs and the marketing.
Anybody have any questions on that? Member Robustelli.
Thanks for the update. I appreciate that, Camille. I think the other thing that the committee had talked with Mr. Hoban about was other potential ways that we could support small businesses more generally. And this kind of goes back to his first presentation with us, sort of looking at what are ways that county governments and we can be supportive of small businesses. I think this program was acutely to respond to the crisis that was at hand, but even more broadly, if it's not this program, that's the assessment that this funding is not meeting it for whatever reason. These other programs have come in, and that's great as long as our small businesses are getting the funding they need to sustain this. Are there other things? What does that look like? And can we get some proposals or something for us to look at and consider so that we can keep our foot on the pedal with regard to supporting small businesses that are maybe will be created out of this, or maybe will need some support?
If I may, I'll reconnect with Mr. Hoban, and perhaps for the next Finance Committee, we can bring forth some discussion points for the committee, if that's amenable to you.
I wonder if you could get some input from Charlie Moore at the Chamber of Commerce, maybe again, if they had some ideas or suggestions what we could do as a county. All right. Any other questions on any of that? Next item we have is the report on recent employment activities. That's in your packet. Is there anything on that you need to highlight?
I do not. I would always be able to answer questions that the membership has. It's certainly notable that our human resource manager has been integral in working with department heads to refresh our postings on our internet site where we have job applicants, and really working closely with department heads to find ways to pinpoint other areas of recruitment, like, you know, Indeed and other membership organizations. And so we've really seen some positive results out of that in our hiring. And I don't have stats for it, but in the future, we plan to, at the pleasure of each committee, to revamp some of the reports that we do give you. Instead of just our chart on who we've hired, we'd like to provide a more comprehensive human resources report. And so I just say that sort of as a forecast to how we'd like to augment the conversation and show you that your investment in us to hire a human resource manager is equaling some positive results in that regard relative to recruitment.
Okay. Any questions on any of those hirings? All right. The last one we have, it's not on the agenda. Ms. Rodriguez came up with a financial update, and I believe did you send that to all the members?
I sent it to all the
that's right.
members. Yes, I did. And, you know, some of the members said, oops, you sent this to me by mistake, but I certainly do want to share it with the entirety of the membership. Reason being, you know, we had hoped as a county administration to share it with each committee, but you happened to be first this month, which was apropos. I did have a couple of wish list, I wouldn't even call them typos, but as I sent it to you, realized on the very first page of the PowerPoint, which was called assumptions for the discussion, just a couple of small mistakes. You know, I did, it's not a mistake that this was created by my staff with data all the way through June 30th, but the sales tax information that we have in our PowerPoint is really through the end of April. And then my other mistake was saying, you know, the property tax due date that I wrote on the assumption page. What is true is the next property tax payment deadline is September 17th. And the extension or the late payment due date was what I was trying to cite in there. That was me having a busy day. So I ask for your grace. But what I will say is, this particular PowerPoint is going to be a lot of what you heard from our esteemed treasurer, and what we intend to do without me reading every single page to you, because, you know, the numbers are what they are, hard and fast. As you look through this, what we wanted you to see in as far as our general fund snapshot, in as far as our revenues, in as far as our expenses, is me standing here trying to paint a picture that operationally, McLean County government is in, and I will be conservative when I say this, we are in a spot where we feel like we're close to spot on. We are continuing, as you page through this membership, we are continuing to counsel and set expectations with department heads to not walk into expenditures, capital expenses, for example, above $25,000 without consulting with us, and then without making a very solid justification as to why they would need to spend those dollars, even if they have already been budgeted for this year. And we feel that at this point, with the information in front of you, that, you know, we do see some decline in some of the revenue that we are accustomed to, but we don't feel at this point compelled to take any drastic moves in regards to you know, assessing programs that should or should not continue, for example. We are because of your legacy, because of the decisions you've made prior to me being county administrator and being conservative, we're in a solid spot. And if we continue to monitor our expenses and keep up with, our esteemed treasurer in looking at where our revenues are at, and forecast even just anecdotally with my colleagues, the other county administrators in the region. I meet with them often and we have these same discussions. Do you feel like you're doing okay? How are your balance sheets? That is how I paint a picture of the solid numbers that you see in front of you. And so I'm certain that many of you have more specific questions. I do have Assistant County Administrator Dreyer in the room with me. You cannot see her. She is the one that provided me with these numbers. And we will be able to answer any questions that you have, I hope. But what I will say is all of our department heads are so good at what they do. Many of them can't predict. For example, the court fees and fines are still, somewhat unpredictable for us. We are not going to, whether there had been a pandemic or not, I think I still would be saying that to the membership, that is an area of our revenue stream that we are not feeling quite solid about, but simply because we never knew exactly how that would look with the changes in state law. I think that even in our Parks and Recreation Department, logically, that we were unable to open our park to services like camping. But since we have been able to, most recently, we have seen quite a positive uptick in revenue at Kamlara Park relative to that camping service that we provide the community, and we're so grateful for their support. So with that said, I am one to paint a picture with words and not with numbers, but you have the numbers in front of you, and I expect that you will have some questions for me, and so I will now entertain those, and if I can't answer them, my staff will.
All right. Member Woolrab?
Yeah, let me just thank you, Camille, for putting, and Kathy, for putting this together, because I think I was one who had requested something like this, and it's very helpful to see it and actually encouraging. So thanks.
Oh, thank you, Member Woolrab. Thank you.
Anyone else? Member Beard?
Yes, I just want to echo that sentiment that, and I think you're completely on the right track in terms of preparing for, potentially the worst or a bad situation, and being, conservative in that sense, and that we want to, anticipate what a bad scenario would be, some deterioration in our revenue, and plan for that rather than plan for an increase. That puts us in a better situation. This is helpful, and I think, myself as a member of this committee, continuing to see updates and continuing to get your thoughts on saying, month after month, as the virus changes and the impact in McLean County changes, where are we at? Are we on track? Are things going as expected? Now that we're getting closer to the fall, and you see, what does a second wave look like, or what would it look like, especially with that sales tax revenue, if we, if things get bad again in October, November, and if the winter looks the same. That's where I have concerns. Property taxes, not so much. I don't see, evidence that over time that's going to deteriorate, but the sales tax over time, from my perspective, would be one of the concerns. And no, I appreciate your approach, and I know with your leadership, and like you said, the legacy that the staff has, that that everyone has, that we want to be intelligent about our expenditures, and by doing that, we can endure this and get through this without having to take more draconian steps. So thank you, and I look forward to continued updates on this.
Thank you.
Anybody else have questions? I have a couple, I guess. And this has to do more with, I think all of us or many of us got emails today from Kelly Murray with the Illinois Association of County Board Members, where there's I believe it's called a CARES Act program, where there's going to be money sent to the counties. And from what I understand, it's not so much a grant as it's going to be reimbursement for COVID expenses. And I was just curious, are the department heads keeping a running total, or they have a little file they're putting expenses in, or I was just wondering how the procedure or the process was for that?
We are absolutely encouraging each department head to keep a running total. They're keeping their receipts. They are reporting that. Sometimes to already to submit to FEMA. So what we are going to have to do is assess what requirements therein are attached to the information that was sent to us today regarding that act, and then do an assessment of what has already been submitted perhaps to FEMA, or at least what we have gathered with intention to submit to FEMA that we could now actually submit to this portion. And so we will give you an update. We only just received this today, and I think that the membership certainly deserves a comprehensive look at where we are at. But we are having our departments keep track of even hand sanitizers that they purchase, or plastic shields that they are buying to better serve the public safely, and face masks. And so we're going to bring all of that to you more so in a summary report. And I'll connect as well with our hardworking emergency management staff, because they're working as well with us, especially relative to what we had intended to send to FEMA. So I can't give you a solid answer right now, but certainly it has been our directive in writing and verbally to department heads that they should be keeping track of all of that.
And obviously the nursing home also will have major expenses there, so.
Absolutely.
I was just curious how that was working. The other thing I had was just a comment. You know, I know a month or so ago, it was in the news quite a bit that Peoria County was having, they were going to do furloughs, and they were having a lot bigger financial problems. And we talked a little bit, and you conveyed to me that they are more relied on sales tax over there than we are. They're not as relied on real estate taxes. So they're, again, whoever made that decision however many years ago to not rely on sales tax, it looks to me like it was a good decision at that time. So again, it made me feel a little better, gave me a little more relief to know that obviously sales tax is going to hurt the lowering of that revenue, but not as bad as it could be. So, okay.
Thank you.
All right.
I only had one more thing, as you recall,
That's fine.
Chairman, I'm sorry I interrupted. I know
No problem.
I wanted to share an information justice system
Okay.
update.
That's
So membership, thank you for this grace as well. So some time ago, it really wasn't that long ago, but operating in a pandemic, sometimes things seem so long ago. We had Mr. Robert Kalin from MTG Consulting visit us. And I believe that was executive committee in particular, give an update on the consulting work completed by his agency relative to our, what we affectionately call Aegis, our information justice system software. And so quickly, as you already know, it needs to be updated. We need a 2.0. We are trendsetters. We have an integrated information justice system, but it can't live much longer. And so what we did with Mr. Kalin and his team was really shoot for the stars and say, Mr. Kalin, we want you to give us the fully integrated snapshot. What I will tell you in a nutshell is he did his job and he gave us all of those examples. What would it cost to, or what would it be like to have something off the shelf, something kind of best of both worlds, or what would it take to build one ourselves? What we've come together to understand is that we need to regroup. because as you've noted in our conservativeness financially, there is no way that I wanted to come to you with the price tag that it would cost to do either one of those options. And so what we would like to do next, and this is a result of lots of collaboration with our justice management group, which includes the courts and the state's attorney's office and the public defender and the and county administration and more. We would like to put out a request for information for pieces of that. Instead of trying at this time to try to get the price on the entire system. We know that we have, as per the intergovernmental agreement, dollars set for payment of this justice information system, but we also know that it's unrealistic to put the price tag that the dream system that we had would cost. And it's irresponsible. That's probably, that's my opinion. It's irresponsible to bond out for the cost of such a system when it would take us 7 to 10 years to pay for that bond. And nowadays, those types of systems tend to only last 7 to 10 years. So at this point, what we want you to know is that we are prepared to enter into an agreement with Mr. Kalin to then complete a request for information for us to see what some components of that would cost. We are graciously, the courts, I'm sorry, have graciously agreed to pay for this out of the court automation fund. It isn't a free RFI, but they can be quite extensive with the amount of data that you need to put out in the original posting that you want potential software system companies to bring back. And so there is no budgetary impact to our general fund for this, but we feel that it's critical that we go ahead and formalize our look-see for vendors that can serve us, and most specifically for the highest need areas, which likely is the case management portion, although we still have more discussions to have in our management system committee. So with that said, this is the information for you at this time. I'm happy to answer questions. I know I didn't formalize a presentation, and you should know that I'm going to share the same information with the Justice Committee next week. And since as this moves throughout the July committee cycle, I'm so happy to talk with any of you on the phone about this as the month moves on. But that's where we're at with that portion of our work. I thought it crucial to bring it up at this point as well, as we do move into the budget season and as we will be assessing our position relative to the needs of the county and the realities of our revenues and expenses. Thank you.
Member Metzger?
So have we resigned to the fact that there's not going to be an integrated system at all?
I think we have unhappily resigned to that fact. I have from MTG Consulting, from our own information technology staff, understood that so few local governments and even state governments have integrated justice systems for that very reason. We were trend-setting. We were innovative when we created ours, but it's almost impossible to replicate at this point. And so I would have to represent the group and say we're sadly resigned to that fact, yes.
So do you have a project plan, an overall project plan for, you're going to start with case management. Will we be able to see that entire plan as to how you intend to start with this RFI, is that completed? Then we go to another one, another RFI before that one is totally ready. I'd like to have, is it, you know, are we using Agile? Are we using a waterfall? Where are we at on this? Do you know?
So I will say, you gave me the perfect segue to say, the next also best step in this is that we need to hire a project manager. I and Mr. Nelson from IT and Mr. Scanlon from Courts, we've been working together on this. You know, everyone's got all hands on deck in talking it out and analyzing the information from MTG Consulting, but we need a project manager to do exactly what you said. We have a very high level plan thought out when we're embarking on this RFI, but we do not have a solid, you know, page by page project plan at this point. We know we need it, and we would like to hire a project manager to help us create exactly what you're speaking of so that we can present that to you. So that's also our next step.
So you want to hire a permanent project manager, not a temporary manager. You see this as being an ongoing
That's a good question. I don't think anyone on the team has said it needs to be a permanent project manager, but at this point, we do see at least a contractual individual joining the team so that county administration can supervise a project without me, the only person that would be available to do project management, setting meetings, keeping track of documents, progress on the project itself. We need an individual like that. So it's quite possible that it is going to be what, as you say, temporary, but more so I would call it contractual instead of a permanent employee. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions? Member Walram?
So the vision at this point is to have a couple or whatever systems that are standalone, and then employees would have to work, or in the background files would have to be transferred between the various systems, and people as in their day-to-day jobs, they would be entering one system and gathering information and moving to another system, and that this situation would last, as you said, maybe, you know, if we put this in place, once it's in place, like the next 7 to 10, and maybe long, you know, these things tend to go, sometimes we don't upgrade, so they could be longer. And how do you see the balance of, if that's the case, how do you see the balance of that with the cost savings? And
I don't have a solid answer for what for cost savings. I do know that the IT professionals that we are speaking with do not, how can I rephrase that? They're clearly, they express to us that we will be able to get the data that we currently get, and that we won't perhaps have systems talk to each other per se, but I don't think that the work it's going to take to pull a report from one system and pull a report from another system is going to be so great that it would make us change our mind and move from singular systems to the integrated system, because the cost of the integrated system is so great that we are concerned in investing in such a large amount of dollars and time, and knowing that it is tending to only last 7 to 10 years. So I guess in all, obviously, we feel that, you know, we will be in a better place if we have proper running systems that also comply with state mandates, then we would lose out by not having these systems as integrated as we would like. I hope that makes sense. And it's regrettable that Mr. Nelson is not here. He is not in the room as he usually is, and I'm certain he could absolutely explain that much better than I.
Member Metzger?
So do you see an opportunity potentially, once this is up, is to have an integrated reporting system, say, use an application like a Cognos or a ClickView or some other reporting application that would be able to integrate data from all those systems to maybe create some customized reporting?
I do believe, and I'm not as fluent as you are, Member Metzger, on the names of those particular products, but I do know that our consultant in putting out this RFI will be asking those very questions. And that's what we will be seeking when we are looking for the right vendor to work with us.
All right. Any other questions? Any other comments?
I'm good.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, let's go ahead and pay the bills, and then at the very end, I'll ask if anyone has anything else. So I have a note from the auditor saying that she's reviewed the bills and certified they all comply with the adopted ordinances. Total of $1,018,871.22. I would entertain a motion to pay those bills. Member Metzger, second by Member Robustelli. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Raise your hand. Bills will be paid. Okay, with that, does anyone have anything else? Member Woolrab?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Speaking of bills paid, I was out there looking at previous bills paid reports that are listed, I think, on the auditor's part of the website. And I noticed that the list of bills paid ended back in September of 19. And so I don't know, who uploads those or how they get out there, but I just wanted to note that there are a number of months that apparently are missing unless they're stored somewhere else. And then I don't know where to find them. So wondered if that could get refreshed. Thank you.
Okay,
I can put in a request to our auditor. Thank you.
all right.
That seems to be across the board for all the committees, by the way. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, Member Beard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, quick question. I know the minimum wage increased to $10 an hour effective July 1st. I know we had talked about that a few times last year. Were we able to, I don't know if we had any employees still that were impacted by that. If so, were we able to process that well, and were there any hiccups, or is that go okay?
It must have gone so well because no one let me know that there were any hiccups. But what I can do is provide a more comprehensive answer to you either in between meetings or even at county board because I just wasn't made aware by my staff of any concern. So it must have gone well. I have no bad news to report in that regard. So,
Okay.
thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Okay, well, thank you all for being here. This meeting's adjourned. We'll see you at the next one.